Okay, so this right here is my 2007 Scion TC, and I love this car. It is my daily. And I've probably said in a bunch of different videos that this is probably the best daily driver ever. It's 30 miles per gallon, relatively modern, glass roof, comfortable seats, 5-speed manual, like ultra reliable Toyota Scion. Now, all that being said, there is one thing I really wish this car had, and it's one thing I can really easily add to this car. Since it's a 2007, it is lacking a lot of modern touches, one of which is a nice modern head unit. This right here is a Pioneer DMH 160BT. Got this thing from Walmart for $230 or $233 or something like that as a total impulse buy. From the day I bought this car, I said I was going to install a Bluetooth stereo with Android Auto. I never did that. So let's get started. I actually bought all the stuff I needed for it way before that. Now, to understand this, there is 3 criteria that I want to complete with this, right? 1, I want a modern head unit with Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. 2, I want a backup camera. Now that this car needs a backup camera, it would be nice to have one. And number 3, I want to have a sub. This car probably has the worst stereo system out of every car in this house, including this 1991 Volvo and including my base model 1995 Ford F-150. Literally the worst bassless stereo in every car in the house. So, subwoofer. The last one is I want to retain the functionality of the factory steering wheel controls on the dash. So with those goals in mind, here's what I got. 1's a stereo. Number 2 is a Scotch car stereo accessory installation kit. It is SCN2059B. Now, this is specifically for the Scion TC for 2007 to I think 2010 or something like that. This kit should eliminate the door, little garage door thing that it comes on top of the radio of the TC. Honestly, I don't like it. I never really felt the need for it, and I'm going to get rid of it. The second thing that I'm going to need is a radio adapter. I bought this on Amazon a while ago. I thought it was going to have a lot more connectors on it, but instead it is a little baggy thing. It is an LPN RRFW2087768. This should work for most Toyotas, and it should work without any major issues. Now, the thing that I'm a little nervous of, because I've done those 2 kinds of things on other cars before. I've wired a little harness, I've done the DIN kit, not a problem. This guy has me nervous. Now, this thing is a Access ASWC-1. Now, the whole purpose of this little guy is to let my steering wheel controls control the stereo that's in this car. I was hoping that going with the Pioneer stereo and this car having a factory Pioneer stereo would make it easier. Nope, still definitely need this. So anyway, let's get started. Step 1 is the disassembly of this whole thing, which shouldn't be that hard, I'm hoping, because Scion. Honestly, another reason why I love this car is just look at how easy it is to set up lighting to work in here. It's so bright. Okay, so step 1, yes, I know the car is a mess. Like I said, it's my daily. Step 1 is going to be to remove the center panel right here. It just pops up. Let me use both hands real quick. Okay, so now I have the little shifter bezel off to the side. Next thing, I actually found my little trim removal tool. I'm gonna pop this in here and start pulling out this guy around the edges like so. So it comes out pretty easily actually. Come out very easily. Okay, I'm gonna take this off to the side right here. Okay, that was really quick. Okay, so now that I have access in here, you'll see there's 2 Phillips head screws at the base right there and 2 10mm bolts at the top right there. I'm gonna pull those 2 out, and the whole radio should come out on its own. Okay, so now that I have the 2 screws down here removed and the 2 bolts up there removed, this guy should just slide right out, just like that. Okay, and I'm going to take these 3 cables out from the back. Now here's a better look at the 3 connectors that were pulled out of it. This should have basically every power, steering control, speaker wire, everything that this stereo would need to function is on the 3 controllers and on those 3 inputs right there. Now, the next step is merge these two harnesses, right? So this harness right here contains the 3 plugs that would be in... Sorry, 2 plugs in this? Wait a second. What the hell? Okay, now I'm worried. Okay, so now we're here. When it comes to the actual wiring harness, it's actually really simple. Now there's going to be these two connections right here, which are going to be used for the stereo, right over there. And then this is the actual harness that came with the Pioneer head unit itself. So when it comes to installing this head unit, it's really simple. All you need to do is match up the colors of the wires with on the both ends. So for example, there's going to be an orange and purple wire here. It's going to connect to the orange and purple wire on the dash harness. Just follow that all the way through. Match up all the colors with light colors. If you want to see a more detailed video of me explaining everything in terms of what wire does what, I'll link that in the description down below. The main thing you want to know is, because the TC does have steering wheel mounted controls, you're going to need what's called an ASWC1, and this is going to be the main part that you want to focus on, because this is what makes this installation different from all the others. Now, there's an extra ground wire and extra power wire that I had to tap in here. This went to the ASWC1 harness, right? So in a moment, I'm going to be focusing on hooking up these wires, which are going to go to this connector right here. Now, this connector is the one that's currently being unused, as these two connectors are the ones that the dash harness connects to, and this one runs through most. This one basically does all of the steering wheel controls. Now, because for some particular reason the steering wheel control unit is not that common, we will have to be using the ASWC1 wires and actually tapping into these ourselves. It's not too complicated. I believe there's only 2 or 3 wires that we need to tap into. And if you want steering wheel controls to work on your Pioneer head unit or a lot of other different head units, you will need to do this step. Step 1 is going to be to take back this insulation on this wiring right here. Okay, so now that I've stripped back this little plastic shielding or rubber shielding or whatever it is, you want to find this pink wire right here. We need to tap into that and connect it to this orange and green wire. Group pink to orange and green. Okay, so the next wire to focus on is going to be the black and green wire from the ASWC1, which is going to be this one right here. The black and green wire is going to connect to the solid green wire on the car's stock harness. And now the third wire from this harness that we need to mess with is going to be this orange wire. Now this orange wire is going to be connected to the ground. So you could run a wire up to like a metal part of here or whatever, but what I'm going to end up doing is cutting this original ground that goes to the SWC1 that I hooked up to the car's ground for the power of the radio, and then just like triple soldering it basically. Okay, so in this bag you have a separate harness that is dedicated to the steering wheel controls. If you look right here, it looks like a 3.5 mil jack. That is apparently how Pioneer does their thing. So what you're going to do is hook this up to the back side of the stereo and then hook the 3.5 mil jack into the ASWC1. Let's do that. Okay, so everything is currently mock hooked up. I'm going to solder it later, but I just want to test to make sure everything works. So once I turn the ignition on and the power goes to the radio, the ASWC1 should flash some colors and it should automatically reprogram or program itself to the car. So there's that. And now I should just be able to mess with the volume button up and down. And there everything is. I have steering wheel controls just from there. The mode button is the mute button. I wonder if I can later change it on to like a voice activation button. But I do have steering wheel controls. Perfect. See if I can get to the radio and see if it'll... Yep. It controls the stations. Perfect. So I'm going to solder those in, make the final connection. Okay, so now that the steering wheel controls work and everything else is in, my next step is going to be to hook up the parking brake safety wire. Now, a lot of people will be running like a little defeat device. I'm going to be honest with you, I thought about it. I really kind of wish I ordered it. If I did order it earlier, I would have gotten it, but I didn't. So I'm just going to install it. Now, it's very simple. This right here goes onto the parking brake, which should be right in here. So all I need to do is lift this thing up just like so. There and there, just like that. So now that that's out, all I need to do is find the parking brake wire, which is going to be that one right there, that one right there. You'll click a little solder connection into this thing and we should be good to go. Okay, you can now see just right there, it is hooked into the parking brake cable. And when I go to settings, let's see, system settings for example, when I release the parking brake, some of the menus get grayed out. When I raise the parking brake, some of the menus work. And I also changed the color of the stereo lights to match my gauge cluster. Okay, so just to go over what we have installed, we have the Bluetooth microphone installed, we have the steering wheel controls, so the access thing installed. The backup camera is already installed. I'm just waiting for the cable to be delivered from Amazon. And another thing I want to install is going to be a USB drive or USB extender that'll pop into the stock OEM little square palette or square blank for the USB port right in there. So now that all three of those things are installed, next step is going to be installing this DIN kit. This DIN kit is going to eliminate that hood, because with the hood it will not be able to close. I'm going to open this thing up, see what's in here, and see if I need to reuse the factory mounting hardware or not. So the DIN kit actually came with its own mounting brackets, which are metal. To be honest with you, I was expecting plastic, so that's a pleasant surprise. And it came with this little block-off plate. This block-off plate is going to replace and basically block off the extra area that was taken up by this little door thing that I'm going to be deleting. Honestly, I kind of wish I could paint this to match, but I can probably do it later. Okay, so the next step in order to make this thing fit is to remove this actual door mechanism. So if you look on the back, the door mechanism is only really held in by 4 separate screws. Right here, 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 and here. There are 4 Phillips head screws, and once those are removed, it should pop right off from what I can tell. So even though I don't have the proper little USB thing that I'm going to use to plug this up, I'm still going to route this auxiliary wire that came with the stereo into the center console. Okay, so here's my quick little closing statement on everything. I got everything back together. I didn't end up hooking up the backup camera, and I haven't hooked up the speaker wiring for the sub. Overall, I'm actually really happy with the way this installation went. The only thing I'm really not that much of a fan of is this right here. Other than that, everything works great. The steering wheel control works amazingly. I do eventually want to paint this bezel to a similar color as this right here. But for now, just to use on the daily basis, since my FM transmitter broke, this has been great. I will say this is really bugging the crap out of me. But I guess I'll do a different video. With the same day I install the sub, I'll also install the backup camera. And that way I don't need to keep pulling it out over and over and over again. But again, as for a daily, this is great. Let me show you something. So, when it comes to actually turn this on and how this system works, there is the nice little Pioneer lettering. Here you can see I did manage to match up these lights to the actual original lighting in the car. And overall, I don't really use this head unit for anything other than Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, or Android Auto and the Bluetooth radio. But it works great. If you see right here, this is the functionality for the steering wheel buttons. The volume works perfectly. This button is now my next track. This is my prior track. And the mode button ended up being a mute button. I would love to find a way to make the mode into like a voice command button when I'm in Android Auto. But honestly, everything works great. The car has a little bit more bass than it used to, but not as much bass I would still like. I definitely want more. So at some point I'd like to put a powered Pioneer sub in the back. But as far as a $200 or $230 impulse buy from Walmart, the radio works great. But again, I think it's so much cleaner without that little hood. I feel the hood just made the car feel so dated. It looks like something out of a mid-2000s Lincoln Navigator. Granted, again, I'm not the biggest fan of 3 different colors of plastic, but it works. One thing I do like, though, is the fact that they had this line continue all the way down. So when I do decide to paint this thing, I have a pretty clean mark out for where I want to put the masking tape. This is nice. Also, this is what everything looks like at night. At night, it just looks like it was meant to be in this car. I love it. Like, you really can't tell the difference between the OEM lighting and the lighting on the head unit. It gives me like a major Midnight Club Underground vibes in this car with the orange lighting.